Smith. I'm so
Hello,
happy
hello.
to see you today. Looking great as always.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. I know how busy you are and all the fantastic things you're getting up to. So I am just honored that you took some time out for me this morning. So I just want to honor that time and thank you. And the reason you've done this is to share your light with our inner circle. So for all of you on my list, thank you for joining the inner circle. And as promised, once a month, I'm bringing to you a fantastic woman that is up to great things. And this month is no different. For the month of November, in this crazy 2020, when we need some inspiration, I welcome to the chair Simone Jennifer Smith. And like 15 years, you've been tirelessly working at advocating for mental health in our community. You've started, founded, and direct your own company, which is amazing. You know, the founder of Here to Help. And your goal is to get out in the community and educate them on their legal rights, their mental health, give them the support they need. And in addition to all of that, you're actually the chief reporter and operating manager at Toronto Caribbean Magazine. And newspaper. And if that's not enough, you also are a host on the TCN TV network. So yeah, I don't know how you fit it all in, girl, but kudos to you. And thank you for living your most largest, biggest, expansive life, because you're a great example. So let me start by saying, thank you, girl. Way to go.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
love it. You know, like sometimes I'm just so happy I get to sit in this seat and ask the questions, but my goal is just to be, you know, the person who asks the question so you can bring your voice to the table. So that's a lot of great work you're up to. Why don't you just take a second and tell us a bit about all you do in your words?
Oh gosh. So Tara, thank you so much for having me on. Mind you, Tara was on time. I was not. I was clearly running West Indian time today. But I appreciate you for allowing me to be here and to speak to the inner circle. Inner circle, thank you guys as well for listening to this. Life is so interesting. You know what, like, I don't even know where to begin with my story, but I will say, yes, I am the founder and director at Here to Help. And I've been doing this since 2012. I've been writing for over 20 years. But the educational part of it happened in 2012 when I started the company. And yes, we are in the community all the time. I mean, we go into those areas that people don't want to go into. So Jane and Finch, Driftwood, Dixon, and that's before COVID, mind you, before they locked us down. So now everything's digital. But before that, we were going into these homes, working with families, new immigrants. And it is such a tiring experience, but it's so fulfilling because you do have to pour a lot of your energy out when you're out there, because sometimes people are not always vibing where you are. And for good reason. There's a lot going on in this world, right? And not everyone is equipped with the tools. So this is where Here to Help comes in. So actually, my name, Simone, means to hear, which is where Here to Help comes from. It's really Simone to help, right? Right? I found that out. And as soon as I found that out, it's like, it kind of worked out really well. It's funny how life works. So my name, of course, my background is all psychology. So I've done my undergrad in psychology, I did my honors, and I did my master's. And interestingly enough, again, my name meaning to hear works out really, really well, because what does a psychologist do?
Listen.
Right? So like, it was almost like preordained for me to get into this role that I am. Like, it was already set up before me, and now I'm just really doing my best to follow in the footsteps of what's been ordained by my ancestors, by God, to do what I need to do. I'm not always good at it, I'll be honest, and that's like one of the things that I think people need to understand is that, you know what, we all have our trials and tribulations, we all have our challenges and our seasons, but I always tell people, as long as you have a goal, you're good to go. And my goal is just to make sure I help my community out as much as I can, even on those days where I don't feel like doing it. Yes. I still do it.
And we all have those days, but it's not easy to step into your purpose. It's not easy to hear your calling and know what you're ordained to do and to get out there and stand up and actually do it. Because there's a lot of things that step in that can get in the way.
Yes.
You know, a lot of self-doubt for many women, a lot of, you know, even I always like to say the crab in the bucket, right? Like just pulling you down. And how did you overcome that? How did you overcome that to say, or how do you on a regular basis overcome it? Say this is more important. The work I'm doing is more important than my ego or my self-sabotage.
You know what? It does take sometimes some hard knocks. You have to go through things sometimes and really feel it to understand that. You know what for me, I always see life as a challenge. Like there's a lot of things that have come up in my path. I mean, a lot of people don't know in 2012, I actually ended up, wow. So I was incarcerated in 2012 in Panama. And when I got out, one of the things I was determined to do was not let that part of my life determine everything else that was going to happen to me. And I'm one of those people that when things are getting really, really difficult, I throw myself full force into my work because I realize I have to do something with that energy.
Mm-hmm.
I could lay on the couch and do nothing, which is, you know what, sometimes it's warranted to do that. I'm not going to say that's a bad thing to do, but you can't stay in that place.
As long as you get up.
Right. You can't stay there.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's just been a matter of always having that goal to be better, do better, always. That's the thing that motivates me. I have to do better. I'm going to mess up. I'm going to screw up. I'm going to make mistakes, but I'm not going to stay there. Right. But that means you have to have goals.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't get that. You need to have goals. If you do not have a goal in life, it makes it very difficult to get up on those days where you don't want to. Right?
That's right. Yes. And thank you for sharing that and being so transparent and authentic. It is so important that we are able to share our whole truth if we're going to walk in our truth. So I appreciate that. And so when you came out of that difficult, turbulent time and you decided, I'm going to move through this, I have a purpose. How did you, start, facilitate, here to help, and also your writing and your speaking? Like, tell us how all of that just came to fruition after that.
So there was this huge push when I finally got out. So I was in Panama for about a month and a half. And then I ended up in America for a little bit in like just a holding place there. And when I was released into my parents' custody, and I was under house arrest for 5 years. So I had 5 years to do nothing but work. I had no choice. I couldn't do anything else. And I'd already started the business before I actually ended up in Panama. So once I came out and once I went through my whole woe is me, I'm a victim, like I went through all of that. I went through the tears. I went through the pain of it all, losing everything. So again, Tara, when I say I lost everything, everything I owned a home at the time, lost that. I was in a relationship at the time. He broke up with me the day that I got out. It was like one loss after other. I had a lot of contracts before I went into a lot of agreements with different organizations to do work for them. And obviously when you disappear for a month and a half, people are like, yeah, exactly. Right. Sorry, Simone, we appreciate you and you're great at what you do, but where have you been from?
Yeah. Business must go on. That's what they say, right?
And it had to go on without me. So for me, it's just been like a push. It's always been this push. So I got out. I got on LinkedIn. This is interesting. I sat on LinkedIn for the first month after I got out, and I just put my work out. I was just writing. I just started writing. I was like, a lot of things were in me, and I had to get them out. And Trish Browning at Toronto Caribbean newspaper, she saw my writing. She's like, "You young lady, would you like to write for us?" And I was like, yes, because at that point I needed to get my mind off of my pain.
Yes.
And I had to do whatever I could to get my mind off of what I was feeling. I didn't want to continue to be this victim and be in this victim mode. So I joined them, and I've been with them for like 6 years now. And I just kept writing. And it's interesting. For 5 out of the 6 years, I did it without pay. Nothing. I mean, I was just writing because of the love of writing, the love of community, and the love of sharing my knowledge and what I know, right? So I just kept going. Finally, of course, with time and as God has preordained, I got the chief reporter position. So now it's just been like one of those things. Speaking, that's been in my blood since I was younger. Both my parents are ministers.
Oh, wow.
So for me, it just made sense. Being a speaker is second nature. I preached one of my first messages in a church at the age of like 10 or 11. Like I was really young. So I've always had the ability to stand up in front of an audience and not feel the fear. Because when you're doing that at 10, you're standing in front of hundreds of people, you lose that fear instantly because you're right?
Yeah, you feel it and you move through it just like you do with everything else, right? And like some people have that passion inside to use their voice, and it has been with us for hundreds and hundreds, centuries of storytelling, the healing power of storytelling. And now you're bringing that to your community to make a difference. So
They need to hear it. They need to hear it. I feel that everyone has their own Panama. I call it Panama, but I feel everyone has that where they feel like they've lost. Like they've lost, whether it's a relationship, whether it's, business, whatever it is, whether it's a job. I think everyone's felt that Panama moment where you're just like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do now? Right.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you know what, right?
I have. And there's, it's interesting because people say sometimes you have to hit rock bottom. And that might be programmed in us. You don't have to hit rock bottom. But I'll tell you, I know what rock bottom feels like. I know losing everything, living at home with mommy and daddy and being the eldest, but yet being back in the house and, not knowing what's going to happen next. But it's that faith in a higher purpose and calling that pulls you through and getting back to it. So with all of that, there is so much going on in 2020 and all of us, they need it. It's interesting. So when I was sitting on the couch yesterday, taking one of those, like, I'm going to watch a movie day.
Right.
And, as I'm watching Martin Luther King March, I'm thinking, why am I crying? And it is just like I'm feeling these tears that keep coming up. And I feel it's for the collective, for our wholeness, for our community at large. And how do you reach those people, and what kind of message of just getting through all of this craziness in 2020 can you provide to them that helped you through your Panama experience, for example?
So one of the things that I've realized is that people, the whole motivational speaking thing, it's great, but I call it the balloon effect. So you're sitting in front of someone and they're blowing you up, and you're feeling great, but a balloon eventually deflates. And in order to get it to go back up, you have to blow it back up again. So for me, I use a lot of quotes and messaging, a lot of small little things, as you see on my Instagram.
Yes, I'm always hitting like.
Yes, right? Because for me, I understand it has to be, this world throws negative messages at us consistently. We get them from the moment we wake up. For some people, they turn on their TV right away and it's the news, and you're just getting inundated with negative messages. So the positive, the light sometimes gets hidden under all of that, right? So for me, I've always said, listen, consistency, I'm going to keep pushing out these messages. I want people always to be thinking. It's one of the biggest things. Sometimes I think people just kind of drift through life. They don't think about what's happening in their lives, what's happening there in immediate moments. So I'm always one of those people who's like, okay, let me throw this mirror up and let me look at it. What are you seeing? And I want people to do this when I do my posts. Usually it's something I am going through, and I feel like I'm not ever unique in my experiences. I feel that collectively, a lot of us are feeling a lot of the same things. So I always want people to realize that they're not alone. You're not alone in what you're feeling. There's other people feeling it too. And every single day, even if you've heard the same message 20 times, sometimes it's that 21 time where it's like, oh, I finally get it. I need to make that change. But it takes time because, again, the negative. It's so powerful. So one of the things that my goal is to continue to put out these thoughtful things for people to really take a moment and introspect, because we don't do enough of it. A lot of us are walking around, and I call us grown-up children. We are dealing with the stress. We're dealing with the traumas from our youth. And a lot of us have never dealt with it.
And don't know how.
And we don't know how. That's the powerful thing, is that we don't know how to do it. I'm fortunate enough I'm educated in how to do it. And even me being educated in knowing how to deal with my mental health, knowing how to deal with my trauma, I'm still screwing things up, and I'm 41 years old and I'm still doing it,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So I can only imagine what it's like for someone who has no idea of how to deal with their mental health, who've just been living life, going through the motions, right? It's a very difficult thing. So again, for me, I really just I try to be that light. I try to be that example. I let people say, look, I'm not perfect
Mm-hmm.
at all. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I am consistently screwing up. The thing is, I identify the mistakes I make, and I really make my best efforts to change them. And there's many ways to do it. Obviously, I always say to find someone to talk to. Always have a very strong support system, right? It's someone who's not just going to say, yes, yes, you're right. No, we need those people in our lives who are like, no, you are wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
you need to work it out. You need to,
Yeah, let's go back and figure this all out because this is
right?
not right. And you touched on that a little bit because, yeah, there's so much negativity coming at us. The media sensationalizes everything. They focus on division. And that is sort of one of the, in my mind, the worst possible thing. We need inclusion. We need togetherness. We need to understand and empathize with everyone's pain. But all that being said, I almost feel like North America also has a bit of happy syndrome sometime and self-help syndrome. And what I mean by that is sometimes we don't allow space to work through the nasty feelings or the feelings of despair or hurt or disappointment. We're just always like, oh, put on your positive face and let's go out there and do that.
No.
I personally think that is a hindrance to women because we need to show up in our wholeness. What are your thoughts there?
Absolutely. Again, I tell people all the time, feel your pain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the biggest person about feeling your pain. So my astrological sign, I'm a Cancer. And anyone who knows anything about cancers, all we do is feel. Like
Yep.
we can't even help it. Like we just wake up feeling stuff, right? Like anything that happens in this world, we're feeling it. So it's like you have to feel your pain. You got to learn from that pain. If you don't stay there, which is what a lot of people do, Tara, you're right. They put on that happy face and go out there, but it's not gone.
Mm-hmm.
It's still there. And at some point in your life, it's going to hit you in the face again. You can't ignore it. You have to deal with the pain. You've got to work through those emotions and figure out what exactly am I feeling and why am I feeling this? And how far back does this feeling go?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It usually goes back pretty far.
And when you just touched on something, because it follows us when we don't deal with it, right? So when we repress and suppress and push it down and put on that smiley face, and we don't allow it to bubble up and work through it, it comes back in different ways, doesn't it? It just shows
Absolutely.
up like with a different mask.
Absolutely. And sometimes it can show up in the worst ways. It can show up in your relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I speak to women about this all the time. I speak to people, not just women, but I'm hinting on women right now because that's who we're speaking to.
That's
But if there is a constant situation happening in your life over and over again, sometimes what we will do is we'll externalize it.
Mm-hmm.
But I always tell people there is always a common denominator, and it's you.
Mm-hmm.
If you're experiencing something over and over and over again, stop looking outside. You've got to turn that inwards because you are always the same person in that situation. The people may change, the circumstances may change, but if you're always the one at the end, like, what is happening here? There needs to be some work done. And again, it's dealing with that pain. It's dealing with that stuff that you haven't dealt with from years ago. A lot of us, I'm telling you, a lot of us, girl, are walking children. And we're walking children having children, which is even worse because now we're passing down that trauma to our children. So it's just, I really, really, again, in my little small ways, I really want people to start thinking. I really want our women, especially because we're the caretakers of the world, right?
We are the nurturers. Mother Earth is all feminine energy. Absolutely right.
Right? So we have to be the ones to set that example, even for the men in our lives. We've got to be the ones to set the example to say, listen, like, we need to do better. We need to do more. But it's hard. It's hard because there's a lot of pressure on women. There's a lot of pressures to wear 12 different hats at once. When do you have time to take care of yourself? Like when? Right?
Exactly. And I feel that too, because I see it in our community all the time with women. And I, even myself, I stayed back and forth with a man for 23 years trying to make it work, and in our culture, sometimes, it's like, okay, this person cheated, but let's work this through because I don't want to just be a baby mama. We got to fix this. And
Right.
it took me looking inside and saying, what is it that I'm missing to really self-love myself enough to know that I should be someone's queen? And so can you give us any similar analogies with relationships you've maybe like worked through and come out on the other end with?
So because of my trauma, a lot of my trauma is sexual related.
Mm-hmm.
I was introduced to sex at a very, very young age.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, it played out in my relationships and how I conducted myself. So I already had a lack of trust for men.
Mm-hmm.
I felt that men usually only wanted one thing. And I figured as a woman, I had the power that I had was what was between my legs.
Mm-hmm.
So I would utilize that power in not a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see it in my relationships. I'm 41, I've never been married. Okay. A lot of my trauma, a lot of things that I deal with, even health-wise, has to do with what I've done throughout my life. And it wasn't until one point where I had to stop myself and again, do that common denominator thing where I was like, so we can't say all men are bad.
No.
Right? Like,
that's not fair.
That's not fair. I can't, maybe Simone, it might be the ones you're choosing, right? Mm-hmm. So I had to take a step back and look at who I was, look at my sexuality, look at how I looked at sex, looked at my trust issues. And what I've realized even right now is that in order for me to really be present in a relationship, I have a lot of work that I still have to do on myself. Mm-hmm. And it's not fair. As women, I hear you. We do try to make things work, even though things are not really going the way that they're supposed to. I believe that everyone's around for a reason and a season, mm-hmm. either reason, season, or lifetime.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So you have to always understand in your mind when the end of that season is. But what a lot of us do is we hold on to that season. It's like, prime example, I refuse to wear a winter jacket until the first snowfall. Guess what I have to start doing? Wearing a winter jacket. But I'm outside in t-shirts in the end of October. Like, who are you? I wanted to hold on to that season. You know what I'm saying? I'm not letting summer go. Yeah. No.
I know.
But you have to, because life is cyclical.
Yeah.
I said the word right.
Yeah.
It is. It's all about seasons, right? So you have to know when that season is over and be okay with it and be able to walk away from that. But it's not easy. It's a very tough thing because, again, you're right. As women, we are the nurturers. We want to make sure things fit and that things are together and that we were able to do that. We don't want it because for us, it's almost like a failure. Mm-hmm. Like, right? Like, what didn't I do? How can I not be doing things right at 41 years old?
Be working. Exactly.
Right?
And then you take on that ownership. But remember, as you said earlier, we're still all walking around as little children and using little children tools. So what did we learn sub 7? What did we put in our subconscious mind? And then we're allowing that to run our lives. So when you get back and you look at that and you realize, well, hold on, this is a child state. I'm slamming my door and going to my room and yelling because it's a child state. How can I get out of that? So if you're in the community and you're trying to work through that and you don't have the right supports, because a lot of the communities that you talked about earlier don't, right? I know I grew up in those communities. No. We didn't come from all the things that we have today, right? So I know what struggle looks like, but how would you recommend that those women out there reach out if they need something, if they're ready to do the work, if they want to, excavate all of those old legacy ways of thinking and step into their power?
I would say one of the number one things that I recommend people, your first 20 minutes to hour of your day are so important. Mm. And again, what a lot of us do is we'll go on our phones and start scrolling. Mm-hmm. Or we'll turn on the television and we'll watch the news. And again, these are things that are not helpful. We need to control the amount of information and the type of information that's coming in, right? Mm-hmm. We have to be able to be aware of what we're putting into our mindset all the time. Mm-hmm. So I always tell women, even if it's something as simple as, in the morning, put on your YouTube and put on a prayer. Mm-hmm. Let that be the first thing you hear. Put on something, a motivational talk, something that motivates you. It's a good way to start getting your mind prepped, because this is a process. Our evolution it's not going to happen. You're not going to be like, okay, I was here and then boom, next year no. Like sometimes it takes years. But the thing is, if you're alive, you can always start.
That's right.
It doesn't matter what age you are, you can start. It doesn't matter if you have grown children, you can start. It doesn't matter if you have no children, you can start. You have to want to. Like you said, if the women want to, there are steps you can take. There's people you can reach out to, yourself being one of them, right? So finding those groups on Facebook, not just going on Facebook to look at strippedness, like, right?
Get another like, that's right, exactly.
Right? Like not paying attention to those things, but really like searching for avenues, searching for platforms that are going to offer you the support you need. For example, I'm on a platform for abused women, right? And for me, it's important because I'm able to share some of the things that I've been through with them, right? And it's that community, right? So it's creating your community as well, right? This is the power of AA, the power of SA. These groups are because you can share your feelings and share what you've gone through and see that other people, because a lot of us feel isolated, Tara. I realize that too. A lot of us feel like we're alone in what we're feeling.
And COVID's not helping that right now.
Oh my goodness. COVID has been, I'm curious. I'm actually really curious. I'd love to do some research on it. I want to see what this year has done to people, like a longitudinal study. What do our children look like in 5 years? What do we look like in 5 years because of what happened this year? People think it's a very slight thing, but isolation is terrible for your mental health. You can't be around your people. You have to talk to them over this. Now, mind you, this is a great platform, but as humans, we need contact. We need to touch. We need to feel. We need to be in people's energy. I don't know if anyone's ever left a plant for a few weeks and when you come back, that plant's withered up. People think that it's just the fact that it doesn't have water, and that is not it. Plants need energy, and they get energy from people being in a home. If you're in a home with a plant, you will see that plant flourish. The moment you leave that plant alone, that plant will die. Why? Because of energy. So just like a plant, we need to be around people. We need to be around people who are going to nourish us. We need people who are going to give us that fertilizer, that energy to make us feel good. So it's just about putting yourself in the right space with the right people, being mindful of your company. Something big lesson learned. Big lesson learned for me.
And tell me about that lesson. Did you learn that during COVID, before COVID?
Oh, that was Panama. That was definitely that message your parents said, you watch the company you keep. You're like, yeah, whatever, mom and dad. Listen to them. Even at this age, I'm mindful of who I have around me, because not all skin is kin, first thing. And not everybody who you think is for you, even people in your family sometimes, and this is the hard part. People in your family sometimes are the ones who are not meaning you well. And it's like, well, how do I get rid of them? It's not about getting rid of them because you can't, but it's about creating distance and space, knowing when to interact with them and when not. If it's a family gathering and you see them once a year, you go, you say hi, how's life? Fantastic, but I'm good at that. Once I leave that, I'm not talking to you.
Right, because I think what you're talking about is those healthy boundaries, right? And knowing what is good for you in that time.
Yes.
Things change, people change. And as you're growing, you have to look at who's in your circle with you too. I'm very diligent what energy I let in my space, in my house. And I'm sure if it's not good energy, I'm saging that. Like from
everything, pure sage. My life is a sage. I just walk around with it.
I got sage spray. I got just sage everything in my purse. I don't
absolutely, absolutely. But you know what? Honestly, it's so important because that again, that negativity is darkness. It's very strong. It's very powerful. But you can be again. You light a candle up in a dark room.
Once you're the light, it can be one small spark, but it can illuminate everything. I agree.
But darkness is attracted to light, and people have to remember that too. This is the whole thing with company. If you are a light, you will attract the dark because they want whatever it is that you have. Like, why is this person so luminous? What is it about? And in my journey, I've attracted a lot of darkness. And I know now that a lot of that darkness was to hinder my progress. I get that now. I didn't know it before, but I understand now. A lot of these people that were in my life, I was attracting them because I am a light. right? And they wanted part of that. And because obviously I'm human, I got distracted, right? I got distracted and caught up in their darkness and got overwhelmed, and my light got put out. But the powerful thing is, because of my ancestors, because of God, my light will never be completely shut off.
Right.
Even if for a moment I will still get, my light is eternal.
And
Even when I'm not here.
And when we're going through, you know, COVID, I mean, you've done some great studies on COVID. You've done some wonderful articles, and I really enjoy reading it because I have some similar views. We'll put it at that. But I also feel like this is an amazing time for us to recreate what we're doing with our lives, because we were walking around like children or zombies, because we were not playing an active role in our life. It's almost like God said, go home. Sit down in your yard, right? Just go home.
Sit down. Yeah.
That's what's important, because people out there are like, I want more, 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 more. And there's nothing wrong with wanting more. But what I've experienced is people want more and they're not willing to contribute or give back. And that is important as a balance, the light, the dark, you know, the giving, the receiving. So in your opinion, especially now with COVID, with everything that's going on the world stage, right? With Black Lives Matter, tell us, how can people reconnect to their light, and how can they share light and make a difference in this time with those that are important and are good for their community?
You know what? I will definitely say you said something that is so important. We need to stop and breathe. Stop. You're right. COVID shut everything down for a moment. From March, April, May, I think it was an interesting time for us because we had no choice but to really look at ourselves. You looked at yourself, you looked at your situation. This is why divorces went up. This is why separations happened during this time. There were a lot of things that you were forced to look at that you never wanted to before, because it's so busy. You get up, get the kids ready, send them to school, jump in the car, go to work. You're working all day. You come home, you sit in traffic, you come home, you make dinner, you go to bed, and you start this all over again. When do you have time to actually stop and say, is this the life that I want? Because a lot of people now are like, oh, I would rather work from home than ever go back on the road and sit in traffic. Right, but it took these things. So my suggestion is, for at this point, if you haven't had the time, which I think everyone has, is really just be at peace for a second. Really stop your mind, which is difficult to do because our minds are always going. Meditation is so important. It's something I would suggest everyone learn how to do. It's not an easy technique because our minds, I'll try to meditate and my mind is thinking work, articles, oh my gosh, I have to eat, I didn't take my pill.
Yeah.
Right? And I have to really refocus. But doing so has allowed me to understand that there's certain things in my life that I needed to change. And that's the thing, is it's not easy. It's not easy. And I really encourage people to be patient with themselves. Be patient. Back to my same thing. Find your support systems. Find the people in your life who are bringing you joy. The people who, when you're in their area or in their space, do you feel uplifted? Or do you leave there feeling, to identify these things? If it's happening in your home, you may have to make some changes that are hard and scary to make. No one wants to walk away from something that they're comfortable in. But you know what? Even with friendships, same thing. Like some of us will be like, oh, she's been my friend since she was, we were in grade 6. Okay, but your friend is negative.
Right.
And she doesn't want what's good for you. So you may have to put it to the side. So I'm definitely just say everyone needs to take the time to be at peace, be patient with themselves, and really take a look at the changes that you have to make. Really identify the stuff that is not good in your life, because we all know about it. We just don't want to admit it. We know when things aren't right. You right?
Feel it, just like you feel the energy outside coming in. You feel your own energy, and whether or not it's the right energy, right? If it's on point. So if you had to take the 41-year-old powerful Simone and go back and tell that little girl who was 7 one big piece of advice that you wish she had heard, what would it be?
You are worth it. You are worth everything that's good. Everything that's good, everything that's positive, everything that is light. You are worth it. And do never, as you were growing up, little girl, do not let your circumstances be who you are. Get past it. I wish I could. Can I go back?
Well, I don't know. There might be an alternate universe. Who knows? But no, unfortunately. But you can still tell, I've done some inner child work, and you can let her know, because there's still some part of her that exists, right? And I just got goosebumps because that's exactly what I would tell myself. You are worthy. You are worthy, and you are worth it. No one else deserves it more than you. You deserve just as much as the next person, regardless of their job, their skin, their culture, their background. It doesn't matter. You are worth it. So thank you for that message. Now, just before I let you get back to your busy life, is there anything else that you feel that you want to share with the women out there in my inner circle?
I really want everyone, I'm telling you, please take the time to do the work. It's hard. It's like a workout. No one wants to work out because it's difficult. It's hurtful. It's painful. You have to get up and do it. Like, who wants to do that? But the results of the work is what you always have to keep in mind, right? You've got to do the work. You've got to work on being the happiest, best you can be. And again, a lot of us don't realize it. We know that we're not completely happy, but we're complacent. No complacency in life. We have one time around this merry-go-round in this consciousness, mind you. I believe in second lives. I believe in reincarnation. But in our reincarnated state, we're not going to remember this existence. So in this existence, in this body, in your temple right now, you've got to make sure you're living the life that you want to live 100%, not 20%, not 30%, 100%, because you get one time around this merry-go-round. You don't get second chances. But we do, but we don't know it.
We don't know it, because then we're in a different soul, a different body, a different whatever situation.
Everything different. We get glimpses of it. We get glimpses, but we don't know it. So just, it's not mean to sound cliche, but live your absolute best life.
Yeah, no, it's not cliche at all.
Like, please do your best. Do whatever you can. And it doesn't matter what anyone has to say about it. Do you have to.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. On that point, I'm going to end our talk today, but I appreciate it. I learned so much. I'm sure my audience did too. Be powerful, be authentic, share your story. It will help someone else. I mean, I took that from you. Stop walking around like a little child. Own your power. What do you want to create? And it's okay to feel down. Be real with how you feel. And even if it's not the happiest at that moment, move through it. Lay on the couch, but get up and live to see another day, right? And the other thing is, be blessed, because we're here and we have the opportunity regardless of what. So thank you for sharing all of that. Thank you for the work you do. And I can't wait till maybe see you in person.
Yeah, eventually we have to make that happen. That's going to happen.
Well, thank you again. And with love and light. Until next time, thanks all for joining. And thank you, Simone.
Bye.
Bye.